another episode. Our last episode that we put out was over these HRC testing files. I did a quick video on that, but before that we were working on our hidden tang knife. So this video is going to be going through the next steps in getting this ready for the handle. The main focus of this one is going to be grinding in the bevels. And the last episode with this knife we left off on the heat treat and tempering it. I tempered it at 350 degrees for an hour, and the reason why is because we were able to use these files to gauge kind of where it was at. And so I think now that we're done tempering it and using the files, we're right at about 60, and that's pretty much where we want to be. So the next step is going to be scribing a center line down our cutting edge. I've just used some Sharpie here, but I'll be running it across the little scribe that I have. And then the other part to this is we're going to be trying out a bevel jig that I have kind of just whipped up. I've been doing some of my knives, most of them freehand, and although it's doable, you get little inconsistencies sometimes. So I'm going to be trying out this thing. It's essentially just a piece of angle iron with some welded on nuts and then the bolts to thread through them that then pushes this out as you turn it. So as we're going across the blade, we can kind of have it angled and hopefully find a good angle to start the primary bevels. Alright, so we have set up our scribe tool and we have set it to where the scribe is going to be pretty much right in the middle. There's a little button here that you can adjust this up or down, and then that puts the high carbon steel edge where you need it. So we're going to be just running this across the edge in both directions, and hopefully we'll get a pretty good even line down the middle. So there's one side, and you can kind of see that it does put a line down it. We'll go ahead and do it again on this side real quick. We're just applying a little bit of pressure, and then we'll come from the other side in the other direction. And then that gives us a pretty good line down the center of this thing. I know it's hard to see it in the light, but it is pretty much centered down that. So that just gives us an idea of where the cutting edge should be when it's all said and done. And it helps me to see, you know, how much more we need to go when it's on the jig that we made. So you know, you can kind of see it from this point of view. I also, the ones that I do freehand, I have like a homemade plunge line jig where I'd be setting this up to pretty much be like a stopping point to create the plunge line. I'm not going to do that on this one. I think we're just going to clamp it, and I'll probably eyeball it in, and we'll see how it goes. But I'm hoping that this, the combination of this jig and being able to see where the line is will help us to get a pretty good primary bevel. The other thing I forgot to mention is because this is an already heat-treated blade, we are being very careful not to overheat the blade. I feel like it doesn't need to be heated up any more than necessary to accomplish putting in the bevels. So I'll probably be taking this and dunking it in this thing of water that I have over here every couple of passes. And that way it'll just help it to stay cool as we're grinding this in. that we have this one side knocked back to this center line that we scribed, we know that our 45 was put in there pretty successfully. And we're going to need to change the angle. I just did that a second ago and unscrewed both of the bolts to essentially hike this back to lessen the angle. And now that we've cut that really sharp edge, we're going to go ahead and trade out this old belt, and we're going to put on a newer, really rough belt, probably a 36 grit belt that I used, I think, maybe one other knife, so this one's still fairly new. We'll go ahead and throw it on, and that should make pretty short work for the rest of this bevel. I'll go ahead and cut the camera back on once we get this first side done. So I thought it was worth stopping for a second just to let you know that I have moved away from this little angle guide. I just wasn't really working out like I hoped. It seemed like the plunge line was, I don't know, just wasn't quite how I wanted it to go. It was really kind of just going this direction. And it was really like a soft edge here. Now it may have been because of my platen. I had the larger platen on there with some cardboard in between, and most likely that could have contributed to that. But it also just doesn't. I don't know. I don't. It's not that I don't trust it. I'm not used to it. So I've decided to pretty much do away with that and just go back to doing it freehand. So I'm still kind of in the middle of doing that, but as you can see, we've started to draw the bevels up close to where they're going to end up. In the drawing that I did just on my template here, you can kind of see where I've marked that out. They go up kind of high and then shoot straight across and kind of fade into the bevel of the little swedge point or clip point or whatever. So we're going to keep going with this and try to get this to kind of mimic that idea. So we're about halfway there on this side, but I thought I'd let you know that we're going to just do it freehand. So anyway, I'm going to keep going for a little bit, and then we'll kick it back on once we're ready to hit the other side. Alright, so we just finished up our last pass with the 36 grit belt on here. And you can see we're at a pretty good stopping point for the 36 grit belt. Instead of changing the belt and going to a 120 and continuing on this side, I'm going to now flip it over, and we're going to do the 36 grit on this side to mimic this exact same angle. And again, I'll be doing that freehand. Now you can tell on here it's not perfect. You can kind of see, the bevel. If you get it in the right light there, you can kind of see that, for the most part, it's pretty straight, but it's by no means perfect. And I think what we're going to do is once we get the other side done, we'll go back with like a 120 grit belt, and we'll really work on smoothing out this line that runs across the top, and hopefully be able to get that to where it's really noticeable, where it breaks right over this edge into the flats. Another thing that we could do, which was a good tip on another video I saw, was to grind the bevels to a certain point, to whatever point you want. And then if you ground them up too far, or you wanted to get a little bit more of a smooth line, was to take it over to, something like this and pretty much just regrind the flats. And that would bring the flat portion back down, of course. So that's always an option if you go up too high or you're trying to get this line to line up good. I haven't tried that technique, so you know, it looked like in the video I saw that it worked pretty well, but something to consider. So anyway, we're going to do this exact same thing on the back side here, and then I'll cut it back on once we have both sides looking like this one. So here's where we're at so far. I thought I hit the record button when I switched to the 120 grit belt, but I didn't, so it was not recording. But really all we did was just kind of re-go over the area that we went with the 36 grit belt on both sides, and just to kind of smooth it out and somewhat fine-tune this this area here, these lines. I'll tell you, most of the knives that I have done to this point really don't consist of, you know, really good clean bevels. Like this one was maybe the 4th or 5th knife I ever made, and you can tell here I just, you know, pretty much stuck it up on the belt and had this vertical line here was from where the belt was grinding in. And it kind of tapers down the edge a little bit, but it's not very attractive. It's a great knife. It works really well, but you know, it kind of looks weird. So with this one, this is honestly the first knife I am trying to get really crisp and clean lines on the bevels, and definitely harder to do than I thought. I mean, you know, I feel like it takes a lot of practice doing this to kind of get a feel for the very, very minor changes in angle that you have to do. And you know, if you just over push it just a little tiny bit, it completely throws off the line. And then to freehand it, to get them both the same, it's been difficult. I've probably been at this for about an hour now, trying to, you know, kind of get the lines to somewhat match up. I did have one mess up on this side here. Let's see if I can get it in the light, and it might pop up. Yep, right there. So I had a little tiny spot that overheated, and you can see the angle change as well. I was pretty much on the belt here and trying my hardest to keep it, you know, the same as we were going across. And what actually happened was I was pushing a little bit too hard, I think, and my tabletop here, it had a really weird screw that I used to secure this top, and it was sticking out a little bit. And anyway, I was wearing a hoodie, and it caught my hood as I'm pulling it across this way, and just accidentally made the knife go more towards the thing. And so anyway, I'm just saying all that to say that if you're a first-time knife maker or you're new, then you got to be careful, especially when you start getting down thin, you know, more towards your final cutting edge. Little mistakes like that happen in a microsecond, and they can really kind of put a damper in all the work that you're doing. So it's a very, very small spot that overheated, and luckily I caught it right away and pulled it right off. Will it affect the cutting edge? Maybe. I don't know. You know, I don't have enough experience to say one way or the other, but hopefully when we do continue the bevels here and we're getting ready to put on the secondary bevel or the cutting edge, it doesn't look like it goes too deep, so hopefully the secondary bevel will get rid of that. But anyway, I thought I would just bring you up to date. This is kind of where we're at. I know the lighting in here stinks. It's really hard to get a good shot. But you can see, like I said, it's not perfect. I'm not a professional at this. It's basically trial and error here, trying to figure out you know, the different ways to hold it and pull it across. This side is a little bit higher up towards the spine than I would have liked. I don't know, I'm really nervous to try to go put this on the flat disc and try to bring the things back down. I don't know, I'm going to sit here and think about it for a minute, but really, before we move on to the next step of doing the swedge, I really want to try to fine-tune this and get them to match on both sides. So that's what we're going to do, and I'll cut it back on once I have that figured out, and I'll let you know what we did to accomplish that. Hopefully it'll turn out all right. So we just finished cleaning up the you know, initial bevel here with the 120 grit belt, and for the most part we got them pretty well the same on both sides. The line is about as smooth as I can get it, really. There's a little bit of difference right here compared to over here. This one kind of just swoops down a little more, and this one kind of comes out this way. It's kind of hard to tell, but for the most part, yeah, I think we're pretty good with where we're at here. So the next step to this is going to be grinding in this swedge here. And I'm not really sure, I've never done this before, so I'm not really sure the best way to do this. I thought about doing this part first and then grinding in these, but yeah, I decided against that. I don't know if that would have been the better way. If you guys have done one before, let me know in the comments. What's the best way if you've done this before? Hopefully we'll get to see what it looks like here shortly. Well, you guys will get to see what it looks like here shortly. I still have to wait a little while because I've got to take a break, but when I come back I'm going to be working on this, and hopefully it'll turn out good. So after giving it some thought, I think what I decided to do was to do this clip point on the oscillating spindle sander. I've got the 3-inch on here now, and the reason I'm doing this is because the curve of this knife really does kind of match this wheel, and I feel like we'll have better success doing it with this. So we're going to give it a go and see how it goes. So I think that so far so good. That's pretty good way to get it on there without overheating it as well, because you can kind of hold it towards the back here and put a lot of pressure on it and its thick spot, and then start to slightly pull out and off as you get to the tip. And right now we've got not a super stabby tip, but that's okay. I don't necessarily think we need a super stabby tip on this guy. And, you know, I think for the most part that's kind of what we were after. Just having those those two different lines come in and meet up here. So yeah, I think it's pretty good. I'm going to keep going on this a little bit longer here, and we'll see, you know, we'll see kind of how it looks here in a minute. Alright, so we just took this off the spindle sander, and I think the false edge turned out pretty good. Let me see if I can get you in the right light to where you can see it. I think I pretty much decided that we're just going to leave this as a false edge instead of bringing this bevel lower and past the point to where this horn would be sharpened. I thought about doing that, but I think I kind of like the way it looks. Before I jump into this, you know, I kind of really wanted to put this in my hand and get a feel for if the dimensions were correct and if it made sense. And really it's hard to do with just a sheet of paper. So what I did was I took that template and put it over a piece of wood and just did like a quick cutout. And when doing that, I can then put it in my hand as if it was the completed knife, and I get a little bit better sense of how it feels. And I think it's going to be really cool. I've got this little finger groove here for the first finger, and then these other three fingers fall pretty well back into this back section here. So I really like the idea, especially with kind of the curved back section. It almost fits back into your palm and makes you want to kind of push down with the knife. I think it's going to be a really good knife. Brass, and that fits up pretty well. So the next step is going to be putting this block of stabilized maple burl on it. And to do that, we're just going to take our template and we're going to trace out a line on it and get this thing cut out. That's pretty much the shape that we're going for. I'll probably sand this part out on the oscillating spindle sander. Alright, now we have this in the vise. You can kind of see why I'm choosing to drill out the hole for the tang before continuing to shape the handle. It's mainly to get a good grip in the vise. I don't have a drill press, so I have to do certain steps out of order. You know, I feel like in a perfect world I'd probably shape this a little bit more before I drilled the hole. That way I'd make sure that they weren't going to be interfering with each other. But I think that doing it this way will probably work fine. So now that we have made it to where we've got all the holes kind of lined up and connected, we're to the point now where the tang will start to go down. But moving forward, I think we're going to be switching over to our needle files to get in here and begin to start to kind of slowly remove material. And that way we don't have such a large opening and a gap to where the knife wants to wiggle and jiggle around. So we're going to put it back in the vise and grab the files and keep going at it until we can get this thing seated down in here pretty much all the way. Alright, so now we have the holes finished drilling those out and removed the rest of the material in here, and for the most part we have a pretty good solid fit in there. Now at this point we're going to bring it over to the spindle sander, probably use like a 1-inch wheel for this little finger groove area, and just generally clean it up along the profile of this. Alright, so there we go. We pretty much have the profile ground out, and we're now ready to pretty much start shaping the handle. I really like the idea of doing a hidden tang. You know, at first when I started making knives, I always started with a full tang knife, because to me it just made sense to put 2 scales onto it and to kind of thin them out and round the corners over. It was kind of a, you know, really good beginner way to accomplish making a knife handle. But the more I get into making knives, and after doing a couple of hidden tangs, I really like this idea. You can do a lot of the shaping without the knife being on there. I really think that it's a cool concept. You know, you can kind of really get in here and start to shape some of the front and do a lot of stuff without having to worry about the knife actually hitting the you know, the abrasives. So anyway, yeah, I think that for the most part we are now pretty much to the point where we are ready to begin kind of shaping out the block to create a handle. And I think once we do that, I'll probably do that in the next video. We'll spend the time shaping this thing out and going over how I'm doing that and what I'm trying to accomplish, how to achieve it, that sort of thing. And once we have the handle ready to go, then we'll you know, probably drill the pinhole and get it all glued up, and then really the only thing we'll have left to do once it's glued up is just probably some minor sanding on the blade and maybe the handle, and putting an edge on it, and then we'll pretty much be good to go with this one. So far it's been a really fun project. My last one that I made, my last thing that I worked on was the hatchet, and I gotta tell you, that was really fun. Not that doing the knife wasn't, but just working on this thing here tons of fun, and lately I've been watching a lot of videos on you know, how to forge different tools, hatchets, hammers, axes, that sort of thing, and I don't know what it is about it, I just like it. So there'll probably be some more of those to come in the future. I find it really a lot of fun, the forging process, and just everything about it. So anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode. I think we made some pretty good progress. I've had a lot of stuff going on outside of knife making, so I haven't been able to make as much progress as I would have liked. You know, I would really love to make a video from start to finish, you know, of an entire knife build. Unfortunately, it would take me like, you know, 3-4 weeks to put out one single video. And I feel like doing it in installments like this is cool because you get to see, you know, more in depth of what I'm doing. Maybe some of you like it, maybe some of you don't, but I kind of like, you know, going through each step and each process and explaining and, you know, helping people understand the way that I do it. Not that the way I do it is right, it's just you know, it's one of those things where I watch other people, you know, cut out a guard, and it's completely different from the way I would do it. So it gives you, you know, another perspective on how to do things, which is really cool because then you don't get stuck in doing something one way. Kind of opens up your mind to different interpretations or different ideas on how to accomplish things. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and stay tuned for the next one. I will be hopefully showing you at the end of the next video a completed hidden tang knife. Thanks for watching to this point, and we'll catch you on the next one.